Thank you, everyone, and welcome to Lifetime's webinar for adopted families. Thank you for being with us. My name is Kim King. Our host for this evening, or hostess, is Libby Murray, and we are here to share a very special adoption story with you all, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day and being with us here on the webinar. As you may know, you are welcome to type in your feedback and questions into the webinar format if you are joining us online. If you are joining us by phone or another way that doesn't allow you to interact through the webinar format and type in questions and comments, you are welcome to email those to Libby, L-I-B-B-Y, at lifetimeadoption.com, or myself, Kim, K-I-M, at lifetimeadoption.com. And before we get started with our interview and before I hand it over to Libby, I just wanted to cover a couple of bases as far as contact info for Lifetime. If you already have an adoption coordinator here within Lifetime, then you know who to contact. But if you do not, then you are welcome to call in, of course, with questions. The number is 1-800-923-6784. That's 1-800-923-6784. If it's your first time joining us for a webinar and you're not familiar with Lifetime, our website is lifetimeadoption.com, and our free online application is available online as well, which is at lifetimeadoption.com/apply. And sometimes families wonder, well, should I be filling out Lifetime's application if I don't know whether or not I want to work with Lifetime, or whether or not we are for sure adopting? And it's totally fine to fill out our application if you have, still have uncertainties about everything. The application does not obligate you to anything here at Lifetime. It just helps us learn more about you so we can assist you with your exploration. So you're not saying you're doing anything with Lifetime, you're just filling it out so we can help you further, answer questions, share information that pertains to your needs and your circumstances. You can also email, in general, questions to adopt@lifetimeadoption.com. That's adopt@lifetimeadoption.com. If you don't have a coordinator and rather just send a general email to Lifetime, just use that email address, adopt@lifetimeadoption.com. And we normally respond to any correspondence within 2 business days. Also, if you've not already followed us on Facebook, we are on Facebook. It's facebook.com/open.adoption. That's facebook.com/open.adoption, and I think it's a wonderful community on Facebook. Facebook is good for a lot of things, but definitely exploring adoption and getting into touch with other adopted parents who maybe have been through it already, who are waiting to be chosen now, or who are thinking about starting. And it's, I think, just a great community. And you can also sometimes hear from adoptees and birth moms on our Facebook page. We always have different conversations going on where people are welcome to chime in with their advice or experience or feelings about different things. So with that, Libby, I will hand it on over to you so we can get started with tonight's story.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. And we did host a webinar last week with just Lifetime families in waiting, and it just felt like forever since we met. And so now we're meeting tonight, and I really don't think it's been that long, but maybe it just feels like a long month already. So I'm just so glad to be back and seeing all of you settling in for another awesome adoption story. And what I love about these is that it usually sparks things that, even if you're already waiting to adopt or if you are just beginning your research, adoption stories are a great way to think of things that you may never have thought to prepare for or ask about or consider. And so we really encourage your questions and your comments tonight. And you can type those easily while we're moving through, and we just want to see your feedback. And sometimes you may even have something that contributes to the rest of the people who are also listening. But as our guests share, I'm sure that things will come to mind, and so we just really want to encourage you to just be open and just engage with us this evening. So I'm excited about this story, and I have been since it started unfolding last fall. And sometimes it's good to give a family a little bit of time to settle in with their baby and their new life. And so I am thrilled that Ryan and Laura could be here tonight because their story covers so many different topics that we hear questions about from hopeful parents who really, are either thinking about adoption or they are already waiting with Lifetime. And so I'm just excited to have them, and I want to welcome Ryan and Laura here tonight. Thanks, guys, for being here.
You're welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us.
So one of the things that we talked about in the email when we were putting out news that you were going to share your story was something that I got to experience because I actually got to meet with Laura at a conference that Lifetime was educating pregnancy centers and pregnancy counselors at last September, and Laura happened to be there because she works for a similar place. She was, now she's a mommy. And I remember getting to know her better, and it's often that we get to know our families, but since we work nationwide, we don't always get to meet everyone face-to-face. And so it was such a wonderful surprise that she just showed up at our booth and we got to have a talk. And she, at that point, was still getting things together to become active. And it was just, what stood out to me right away was just how you guys were called to adopt, and you were just taking the step by step by step to figure out how this is going to work, where's the money going to come from, what steps do we need, what kind of adoption do we want, and you were just moving forward. And a lot of people that we talk to on a day-to-day basis get sort of hung up. They get overwhelmed, and sometimes it stops them from moving forward. And I think one thing that just stands out is how you answered the call to adopt. And I would love for you guys to just retrace your steps on how you got to that point where you actually began the process to adopt.
Well,
yeah, so we were arguing about who was going to start talking first, so I apologize. And by argue, I mean just look at each other weirdly.
Of course.
So we started, Laura and I started trying to have a family about sometime in maybe late 2010. And it's been I guess a difficult road to get to where we are today. We had some issues with fertility that kind of put a damper on our spirits there a while back. But do you remember when it was that we first started looking at adoption? I don't remember exactly the timeline.
probably January of 2000, I guess last January 2014, I kind of started mentioning it to Ryan.
13.
Okay, 13.
13. No, it was 12. It was 2012. Sorry, get our story straight. Yeah. So the way I remember is it was in 2012, and we started talking about it. I think it had been something that God had placed on Laura's heart initially, and of course she tried to talk to me about it, and I didn't want to hear it. I'll just be honest. I was not even remotely interested at the beginning. For whatever reason, maybe I'm just a selfish jerk, but I didn't want to have that conversation. But Laura did, and she started prayerfully seeking God and tried to figure out, what that call was going to look like. And I think it was early 2012. She started kind of mentioning it, talking about it. It was a several-month process for me to even become cognizant that that would be a possibility. And how that came about is it's the part of the story that I like telling because it just shows how God can change anybody's heart. So I was, like I said earlier, not interested, didn't want to talk about it, was firmly convinced that adoption was not a thing for us. And I remember I was on the road and about 2 hours from home, and I had a friend that we knew when we lived in a different city. He had moved away, and we had kind of lost touch. I hadn't talked to this guy in probably a year. And he called me out of the blue. I remember exactly where I was when my phone rang, and I looked down at my phone, and it was like, why is this guy calling? And so I answered the phone, and I said, hey, man, what's happening? And he said, hey, so I had a weird dream about you. Have you guys ever thought about adoption? And I was like, no. Why are you asking me this question? You're crazy. Leave me alone. And
In the back of Ryan's mind, he was thinking, have you been talking to my wife secretly?
yeah, for real. But we talked about it briefly, but I dismissed it. I didn't want to give it any thought. And then probably a week or two later, same thing happened with a different guy. Got another random phone call. Hey, man, have y'all ever thought about adoption? And I was like, okay. At that point, you kind of have to sit up and listen. At that point, it was like, okay, somebody's trying to tell me something. I should probably pay attention and get my head out of the sand. And so I started praying about it and talking with Laura more, and we started having the conversation. And I realized up front I didn't know anything about adoption. I was as ignorant as possible. And
me, on the other hand, I had my binder full of all these pamphlets from work, all about adoption, and all the information, any questions he could possibly throw at me, I had answers for.
So then, of course, it went from being not something that I wanted to do at all to the best thing I had ever thought about doing in the whole world, because it's my idea and I think it's great. So.
Well, and I'm getting feedback from the audience who's saying how, yes, that was us too. It sounds like my husband and I, or it sounds like when we just kind of got to that point of what's next in our journey, we still want to be parents. And had you guys gone through, every family has different amounts of what is enough when it comes to trying to conceive or trying to add a child to their lives, but how long did you experience, maybe even Laura, because since she was on board before you, how long did you guys go through trying to add a child to your lives biologically before even one of you was thinking, maybe it's time to adopt?
Libby, we talked about it in the past. I've talked to you about, in the back of my mind, I've kind of always wanted to adopt, but it was not fully in the front of my mind. I had always thought, we'll biologically have children biologically, and then maybe we'll adopt, But the more we started to try to have them on our own without paying attention to what God had in front of us the entire time, we realized that adoption was in the plan all along. And when you see pictures of our daughter on here, you'll realize she, was in our story. But no, let's see, we've been married 8 years this year, so probably I would say in 2010, 2010, we really started looking at, okay, what's going on? Why are, we've wanted a baby. Why are things not successfully working? Is it us? Is it, what's going on? And so we started talking to doctors. I started seeing specialists, and we went through several different surgeries I did, and all of them did not provide us with a child. And so that's when we kind of started really noticing that God said, stop. This is what I have in plan for you. And as soon as we said yes, things started falling into place.
It was right around, I'll just add, we looked at doing an IUI and to try to encourage pregnancy. And I remember we had a failed attempt at that, and it wasn't probably 2 days later after we figured out that didn't stick, no pun intended, that I got those 2 weird phone calls. That event started to, it transitioned. The conversation shifted from, okay, we're going to be in control and try to do this on our own, and then it turned into, okay, we're just going to let go and let God. And then, I'm serious. It was a very quick time frame. It was weird looking back on how quickly the transition happened.
Well, and that's part of my favorite thing about your timeline. Kim and I host a lot of webinars, and what we love about adoption stories is they're each so different, and one of the things you can notice that's different in most stories is the timing. But so often with adoption, people are thinking, oh my gosh, I've heard it takes forever to adopt. You know, I've really got to prepare myself for this long haul of waiting until it happens. And while we see that happen for some people, we also see some families who start a program and adopt rather quickly. I mean, and you guys were much shorter than the average wait time for adoptive couples. And I love bringing your story into that contrast, because you can't take for granted and think it's going to take at least a year, so I don't need to rush getting anything ready. You guys had to be ready, and you probably would have missed out if you weren't ready. But what I love remembering was you became active shortly after we got to meet each other in person, and then I remember Laura wrote to me and said, my church just did this video and we shared our testimony. At that point, you weren't even matched. You just were starting the process. And it was for Adoption Month in November. The first weekend in November is usually known as Orphan Sunday. And the churches often recognize adoption and a call to care for orphans. And you shared just what Ryan just shared about how these people had called and just started laying it on your heart, and you guys gradually came together, and then you began this journey and just encouraging other people, you know, consider it, ask questions. You never know where it could lead. And it launched that first November weekend, and then I think, Laura, you and I were talking 2 weeks later, your baby was born.
Yeah, actually, in September, on Ryan's birthday, we turned in all of our money for Lifetime. And, you know, you think, you know, Lifetime tells you, you know, anywhere from, what do y'all say, 6 months to 2 years? I don't even know. And so we turned in our money September 26th, and we did the video for church. It went out first week in November. And by November, I think 17th or 18th, we got a call with a potential match. And our baby girl was supposed to be here 4 weeks later, and she came 4 days later. So,
yes.
Very quick.
And so to the people on the call, because I've actually had people say, well, it's the holidays, I really don't want to work on anything right now, and I'm not going to get chosen yet anyway, so I'm just going to put this stuff off. I mean, what did it mean to you knowing, wow, like they weren't kidding, we had to be ready?
Well, I think initially I had always thought that it would happen quickly. And Ryan, on the other hand, kept saying, we've got time, we've got plenty of time, we've got, you know, we'll know in advance. We'll know, you know, 3 months. He said, I just feel like we're going to know plenty of time, have months to prepare. And it's funny because, I mean, we had a little bit of time to prepare, but really only 4 days.
And I hate being wrong. And I was wrong.
Oh, it's funny. So can you guys see your screen? You can see the picture,
can.
right?
Yeah,
so,
that's heading out to California at 4 o'clock in the morning.
So the first
we
photo we had up was actually when you found out you were matched. That was, yay, we're matched, let's go out.
Yeah.
And then this one I love because here you're on the airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those two pictures were taken like 5 days apart.
It's amazing. And
Totally.
I want to back up just a little because we did have a couple questions, but also because I think it's so important for people to learn from each other. But one of the hurdles that people have when they're just, you know, a lot of times their desire to adopt comes before their readiness to adopt. And one of the things that holds a lot of people back is the fear that they can't afford adoption fees. And I would love if you guys would just share how you encourage other people, because I know that you've already used your story with people that you've met personally. I would love if you would just give a few tips or insights into how you were able to make adoption possible, just with those logistic, with the fees involved, the costs, the steps that you had to take, because so many people get really overwhelmed with that.
Yeah, I'll take that one. This is a subject that I really like talking about because, again, it shows how big God is. When we started, we signed up with Lifetime back in, I guess it was March of last year, April of last year. So everything was great. We're gonna, we're gonna do this. We had a little bit of a clue as far as how much it would cost, but the estimates varied so much, and we had just said we budget whatever the amount was, and after we got everything set up, and we realized, oh man, we've got this bill coming up due, and we have to pay within, I forgot how many days, but that was it. It's a very big, it's a big number, and Laura and I, we do okay, but we're not rolling in dough by any means. We're trying to, get our careers going, and it's just we didn't have the money saved up. So one of the things that I always go back to, number one, there's a very good verse that I reference often. It's Philippians 4, 6, and 7, where God says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ." I lean on that whenever it seems like every day I have to go back and tell myself that verse, especially when we were looking at an adoption bill or figuring out what the cost is going to be. So, and the other thing is, I'd like to say is, that God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. And so when He calls us to do something, He's not going to give something, He's not going to tell us something to go do and then not equip us to go do it. And I'm so hard-headed, I've had to learn that lesson more times than I'd like to remember. And I'll be honest, my ego was so overdeveloped that I didn't want to ask for help. And that was I think Laura and I had, call it discussions about, were we going to fundraise? Were we not going to fundraise? Were we going to ask for help, or were we not going to ask for help? And I didn't want to. I didn't want to ask for help at all. And I made that known around here. Again, God changed my heart. I prayed about it. I talked to a couple of my mentors, sought wise counsel, and turned out that fundraising is not anything to be ashamed of. And it goes back to God providing for your needs and not calling you to do something and then not equipping you to do it. So we started a little fundraising campaign, and we had a couple of friends give us, I don't know, a few $1,000s each. We had a family member give us a few $1,000s, and then, the rest of our lifetime fee we raised, through friends and strangers sending us, $50 here, $100 here, and over a few weeks, we looked up one day and we had the money. So now the travel and the lodging for, when you go to pick up your baby, all that stuff was extra, and the legal fees and all is different. But as far as the lifetime fees, it just showed up. So, and it blew my mind. And I still don't understand how it all happened. It was crazy, but it was God. So there's that.
I love that. And then even we'll get to it a little bit later, because I do want to jump into those moments of meeting your daughter and what open adoption is like to you guys. But that it didn't stop just to get you started. It continued through the process of meeting your daughter and even when you got home. I just wrote down what you said. Don't be ashamed to fundraise and ask for help, because I think that just sums it all up in a nutshell. I would say we all have that pride issue of, is what I'm asking for too much? Is it too much for me to tell people this is a desire of my heart and the plans that we're making, but we need help to get there? If we needed help you know, if you broke your leg and you needed someone to come over and help wash your hair, you know, that's a smaller issue. But even those things stop us from asking for help because we all live in a country that tells us you should take care of yourself. But the reality is people are, I mean, Laura, I remember when we were just that week at the conference that you even got 1 or 2 texts from Ryan in the middle of workshops talking about another check came in, and it was just amazing to just see little by little making it possible. And the people are overjoyed to participate in something as big and amazing as adoption.
And I always think too, there are families that are not planning to adopt, or they're older and they're finished having a family, adding to their family, but they have the money to give towards an adoption. And, you know, those are the ones that helped us along the way. I mean, it's just, basically it's just word of mouth, letting people know that you're adopting. And then, I mean, for us, it was crazy. I mean, even down to our plane ticket flying out the night before, someone said, we'll cover your plane ticket. So, and that was very, you know, we were expecting to have to pay plane tickets and hotel, and a lot of that was covered.
So,
we had a question come in that said, what activities, I lost it. Let me scroll back up. Basically, what fundraisers did you do, or what would you recommend? This is a family who's just getting started, so any input would be helpful.
You know, we've seen people do like garage sales and, you know, selling T-shirts or anything you can think of, and those are great. And you know, all we did was we just set up what was the thing called? I can't think of the name. It was just an online YouCaring. Yeah, it was a YouCaring page. We posted some pictures of us in our story and shared it on Facebook. And then you know, friends would share it, and your audience goes from, you know, 100 people to 500 people, and the next thing you know, it's probably being viewed by a few thousand people. It's just by a few shares. It's just kind of that 6 degrees of separation rule. You know, you can reach anybody just from a few steps. And the more people shared it, the more broad the audience grew to. So, but there are infinite options of things that you can do. My biggest thing, you know, I would say is just try it. And try a few things, you know, and if this YouCaring or YouCaring thing wouldn't have worked out, you know, we would have tried something else. But luckily, it kind of stuck right out of the gate. So I'll just encourage you to do it.
Good idea.
So, yeah, I love that. So I would encourage any of you, if we have some questions coming in from families already working with Lifetime, and then we have other people who are just new to Lifetime altogether, or you are already considering coming in. And if you have questions about fundraising or what you can do to keep building your adoption budget, let your Lifetime coordinator know, because, I mean, that's one of the reasons I love hearing it from people like Ryan and Laura, is just because when you know it worked for someone else, sometimes it's a little less intimidating and you can actually picture yourself doing it. And just to remember, you know, every little bit helps. So even if you get a yard sale with a few $1,000s and then a friend gives you $100, you know, there's maybe your home study. And it just all adds up. So if that's something that is on your mind that you want more information about, reach out to your Lifetime coordinator or give us a call or shoot us an email, and we can always help you learn more about programs that are out there, because we're continuing to stay on the front of that too. And I know that Kim and her team, they're very informed about what's working right now for people. And probably, Kim, we're going to have a webinar like that again in the future, because I know it's been a little while since we talked about some of the modern ways to fund adoption.
Right, I think that would be a great idea.
So I brought
that
up
is
these
a great
pictures.
idea.
These are your sweet baby Ava, and you got to meet her the first time. And so one of the things that I love about your story is that it's an open adoption, but that it started out well, there's two aspects to this. So you got to know her, and then like you said, by the end of the week you were flying out to go meet this baby because she delivered early. But you already knew, I remember even talking to you saying, she uses her mom's phone. Maybe we can get her a temporary phone. And Laura, you actually stood up for Ava's birth mother and said, no, she doesn't like to be on the phone. She doesn't want to own a phone. I'm not going to push her. And I love that you got to know her enough to respect that and not just make it comfortable and more, more peace of mind for you, but that you were on her terms. So not only did you think you were going to have more time to get to know her, but that she also was the type of woman who just wanted it at her pace. It wasn't just all open all at once. So what was it like at this moment coming in? Did you get to meet her when you met your baby the first time, or was it a little while later that you actually met Ava's birth mother?
Well, that's a funny story, too. We actually flew in and got our rental car, drove to the hospital, and, of course, Ryan and I are immediately nervous wrecks. And so we drive up to the hospital, finally figure out the parking garage. That was an issue. And we got upstairs to see our birth mom because Lifetime had called and mentioned that the birth mom wanted to meet us. And so we walked up to her door, to her room, and the nurses and nursing staff stopped us and said, I'm sorry, the doctor's in right now, so why don't y'all go get some lunch? Aren't y'all hungry? You've had a long flight. And Ryan and I just look at each other and are thinking, we're not hungry. We just want to see our baby. And so we go downstairs to the cafeteria. We get a hamburger and sit down to eat, and Lifetime calls us and said, hey, would y'all like to just go meet the baby first? And, of course, we just dump our food in the trash and immediately go up to the hospital, to the nursery, and meet our little girl. And so we met Ava, and probably about an hour later, after we got to spend some really good quality time with her and the nursing staff, which, by the way, the nursing staff at this hospital was great. They were not very familiar with the adoption process, so they were pretty flexible with us. And Ava was the only baby in the nursery, so we had the whole nursery to ourselves. And then probably about an hour or so later, we met our birth mom for the first time.
And so what was that like? Because so many people get very nervous about last-minute adoption opportunities, and what I love about this is that you knew about her. In fact, you already agreed to have a match together, and then it all turned into a whirlwind quickly. So in a sense, it probably felt more like those times when we talk about drop in the lap or last-minute adoption, but you had more information than a lot of families do. So meeting her and knowing, wow, we thought we were going to have more time to talk. We just talked to you 5 days ago. What was that like for you? Because so many people would just get their guard up thinking, this is all happening too fast, I'm not even sure where to start.
Meeting our birth mom was not as big of a deal as I made it up to be in my head. But when we met her, I actually remember I had kind of, and this is weird, it's like I had fallen in love with her, and I didn't even know her, but I loved her already because she had just given birth to my kid. And so we instantly had this connection with her. I couldn't explain it, and for people who aren't into adoption probably wouldn't get it, but it was super cool just to, and we had only talked to her on the phone like twice. It was not not like we had known her for months and months. We walked in the room and it was like she was my sister or something. It was really cool.
It's really neat because now we communicate with her through email pretty much on a weekly basis. She asks for pictures of Ava, and to me, she's just part of our family. No, we don't hang out. No, we don't talk on the phone, but she's our family. She brought us our sweet little girl.
Mm-hmm. And now, was she a younger woman? Did she have family involved?
She was around 24, 25, and her mom and dad, she lived with her father, but her parents were still very involved in her life.
No other kids, single,
So did you
sweetheart.
get to meet her parents?
We did. We met her mom and her dad, both separate times. I think what was really neat is Mom, her mother, was very encouraging with the adoption process from the get-go. I think actually she's the one that encouraged her the most. And then her dad was more, I wouldn't say standoff, but he just really, I don't really know what's the right word for it.
I think he wanted to see her recover from the pregnancy and be healthy, and I think he was just a loving dad. It'd be like I would be with Ava, I mean, I think he knew that it was a hard thing that she was doing, and then was just there to support her, and but still maybe somewhat guarded. I don't know.
But I think that the neatest part that I love is when we went to tell her goodbye, the dad, our birth mom's father, just bear hugged Ryan and hugged him and said, "Thank you so much for taking care of Ava." And that just meant a lot to us to know that they loved us and knew that we were, the right family for her.
Wow.
Cheers.
I know.
Yeah,
I love that. And I tried to put the photos that Laura sent me in sequence. So these are the photos that I gathered were leaving the hospital. This is her little go-home outfit, and you're getting ready to leave and go stay in a hotel. We got a great question.
That's another funny part that I was just thinking about. We get to the hospital on Tuesday, and the nursery staff looked at us and said, "Well, she's ready to be discharged." And Ryan and I look at ourselves and we're like, "Where's she going?" "She's going home with you to the hotel." So I think we were a little caught off guard that it happened so fast because we had just gotten there the day before. And so we took her home. That's actually her going home outfit on the left.
Well, especially because she was technically, you thought she was a preemie, but she was actually a
Right.
pretty healthy-sized baby.
Right. She was 6 pounds, 7 ounces. I mean, yeah, 7 pounds, 6 ounces. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, that's full-term size right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would gather that because you were probably thinking, well, she's 4 weeks early. We're going to have a few days at least.
Right.
But also, I mean, I think that's so true. I would say even if you had waited much longer, I've heard that a lot of times from adopted couples when they have this feeling of, wow, it's actually happening. And that's what we always try and encourage people is to remember it's going to happen. If you're doing everything you can to get there, it's going to happen. So, but what a precious memory, especially as first-time parents, to just look at each other with, oh, that's us. When it comes to open adoption, we had a great question here. I loved how you both described her and also her parents in a very extended family type way. And I think that sort of answers this question in itself. But when it comes to open adoption, a lot of people have this fear, what if she interferes in the future?
Yeah,
How do you answer that?
We've talked about that before, and I know this is not a universal condition, but in our situation, it just happens that, she is like 3,000 miles away. And so, I don't worry about her showing up at my house, but at the same time, if she did, we would let her in and we would love her, I think that in our situation, our birth mom she really is precious. So I really can't speak to if it's not a good situation. I don't know how to answer that, but in our case,
Right.
it was overwhelmingly positive.
Mm. Well, I think because it's one woman. It's not a stranger. She's not a stranger to you. You didn't create an open adoption with 12 different strange women. You know, this was one woman. We talked to her one-on-one. We moved forward with her. She doesn't remain a stranger once you start getting to know her, and so then you're able to talk about things. And she was very clear with you guys. I'm not choosing adoption because I want to share custody.
Yeah, that's right.
And I actually love that it's open because I can email her, and Ava is kicking a lot right now, and I just joke with our birth mom. I'm like, she must have kicked you the whole 9 months, and she'll comment. It's just funny little comments of things that she did, and we've got an ultrasound picture since then, and just a lot of neat connections that we can make just through email.
Mm-hmm. So you leave the hospital, and then we actually had a great question, and I know that we talked about this right before the webinar began, so I think it is important to know, now this was right before Thanksgiving, right? So I'm bringing up your very first Thanksgiving photo. Here you are back at the hotel, and you were in Southern California, so you even took a visit to the beach at one point, and
Aw.
I know, isn't this cute?
First time. Cute.
Yeah, she didn't even care either. I took her to the beach, and she didn't even acknowledge. She didn't say thank you or anything.
You could hold it over her head later when she wants a
Yeah,
car or something. So how long were you actually in California waiting for clearance to go home?
We were actually there 4 weeks. We were, when we left our state, we were thinking we'd be gone about 10 days. So we only packed clothes for about a week and knew that we could wash. And we ended up being out there for 4 weeks. We had some few ups and downs, but no odd things. Birth mom never changed her mind. It was never anything like that. But those were 4 weeks that we got to spend as a family of 3 before we came home to the chaos of all of our family living in the same town. So it was actually, at the time, was hard because we were so far away and we were by ourselves. But looking back now, we realized that it was a really great time to be away.
Well, and because the average is, I mean, it's hard to absolutely predict, but the average is usually, we tell people, 1 to 2 weeks. Sometimes the holiday could add to that, but even, I know even the coordinator that helped you when you were working with Veronica, even we were all surprised, oh my gosh, this is taking so much longer than average. But that it really is about, I mean, to me, it just all goes back to the very beginning when you believed this is what God was speaking into your life and the direction you were supposed to take. And so we have to stay flexible. We have to keep saying yes and moving forward, because what would the alternative be? Taking her back to the hospital and saying, find another family that can stay out here?
Right.
I mean, that would be impossible. So that'd be an
And
impossible decision for you guys.
Right, and absolutely. While we were out there was no way we were leaving. There was no way that Ryan was going to go back to work and me stay or send a family member out there. We came as a family of 2, and we were going home a family of 3 no matter what.
Right, and so we had a question, was it necessary to be there that whole time, or did you just stay 4 weeks? They had to be there because they hadn't gotten clearance. There were some technical issues happening. Primarily, I would say, in a nutshell, a lot of it had to do with probably the very quick nature in which this birth mother went through everything.
I would agree, yeah.
Because she was in denial a lot of her pregnancy too, so she came down to the end and everything came together so fast. I would say she probably had to just catch up to herself. I mean, it's overwhelming.
And the state that we adopted from is there were some legal hurdles that we had to jump through. There were some hoops. If we would have known beforehand and we would have had more notice, we could have taken care of a lot of the documentation prior to the birth. But since everything happened so quickly, it pushed everything back. And we weren't really aware, and I don't think anybody really can anticipate what lay ahead. It just happened, and it happened, and we just dealt with it, and we were able to negotiate our hotel for a better rate for extended stay. So
Which I want to interrupt you, Ryan. Ryan, you just brought to mind what you said earlier tonight about, I just think this whole thing was preparing you even to go and talk with the hotel about, do you have any better rate for us? Because you already said before, like, I didn't want to ask for help. I don't like telling people what I need or how it could benefit us or how it could help us move along. And I love that you now are even at the point of going to the hotel saying, we have to stay here longer. What can you do?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did. And I think they gave us a rate that was about a little less than half of what the advertised online rate is. Now, they didn't have this is a separate topic, but it kind of irritated me that they didn't have like an adoption deal or something. You would think that, maybe not, anyway.
Or like a long-term stay.
It's not a charity. So I was able to talk to them and I just explained to them. I'm like, look, we've been here for 2 weeks, and we're going to have to stay somewhere. We might as well stay here, but I can't pay the full price for 2 more weeks. So what can you do? So yeah.
And I will say that when you're looking for a hotel, this is just a travel tip. When you're looking for a hotel, try to find something with a kitchen that you can keep groceries and all, because that saved us a lot of money by being able to buy, even if it was like sandwich fixings or anything like that, that we could keep in the fridge. Our hotel room actually had a stove and a regular size refrigerator, and our hotel also provided meals like Monday through Friday night, dinner meals. So that saved a lot.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and give props to Homewood Suites. That's where we stayed. Full disclosure, we had a one-bedroom. The bedroom separate from the kitchen, living room area. They had a breakfast every morning, which was outstanding. It wasn't like cereal and bagels. It was legit bacon and eggs and whatever you wanted. They had unlimited free coffee throughout the day, which I'm a fan of. And then dinner was actually not bad. We ate dinner at the place just about every night because it was not free because we were paying for it with our hotel stay. But yeah, that's super great.
Mm-hmm. Those are great tips. I love having that because we get questions so often because I know everyone's trying to prepare, but also sometimes just even mentally preparing for living away from home. And I know there were some anxious moments for you guys, and honestly, that's something that stood out when we talk about waiting in adoption and how the waiting can be a challenge. A lot of people would probably think, that's all fine and dandy. You guys adopted within weeks of starting a program. How could you even relate to me when it comes to waiting? But the waiting doesn't just apply to being chosen. Here they were with their new baby, going through the holiday season, first-time parents, halfway across the country, and I know there were some anxious moments, like when do we get to go home? When do I get to use my own laundry machines and cook in my own kitchen and put my daughter in the nursery we've prepared and settle in? And even though that period of time was so temporary and it ended quickly in hindsight, moving through it on the front end, I know, caused you guys some stress time to time. Plus, you're tired with a newborn. You've never been with a newborn day to day. Like, everything adds up.
And she screamed for the first 6 weeks of life. So that in a hotel was not a lot of fun. We did lots of late night drives. So it was challenging, but like I said earlier, looking back, it was the best 4 weeks because it was just us, and, you know, we had to make it work.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, I want to make sure that we show, I have these super cute pictures of Ava and Ryan. And I love that both of you are here tonight because you're really speaking to the men and the women who have joined our audience. Can you talk a little bit, one of the reasons I love this slide is because, Laura, you brought to mind something that we hear a lot. Maybe Ryan can recount it or you both can chime in. You were actually given advice on how to emphasize Ryan's role as the adoptive dad coming into play.
Mm-hmm. I didn't mention to him that I told you that yesterday.
So now this makes for an awkward stare across the kitchen table.
Mainly, Ryan, I will tell you now how when we got to being matched with our birth mom, and when we got to the hospital, everybody just emphasized how much our birth mom was looking for a father for her child, and we knew that our child would be fine with our birth mom. She would have lived a happy life and would have been well taken care of and would have had a mommy, but she never would have had a dad. And so for that just plays a big role in our family as the two of us because both of us had dads that were very influential in our lives. And so that was something that we want to make sure that Ava has, and no pressure to Ryan, but that's, you know, something we want to make sure that Ava has growing up, because we just see so many single moms out there raising babies by themselves.
You know, and I'll jump in here, and you know, I was very fortunate. My dad was very involved, but I have a lot of friends. I know a lot of guys who their dad was absent, and you know, it's just something that I've always taken very seriously, is that call that God's going to give me children, and it's my responsibility to raise them and love them and be there no matter what. So I'll tell them myself. We rolled up to the hospital and went upstairs like Laura described. We went up to the nursery, and oh, there's our baby. And I don't remember if I let Laura hold her first or if I held her first. But I think Laura was very sort of guarded that, you know, she didn't want to get too attached because what might happen? What if birth mom changes her mind? Then we'd be out here and we'd be stuck, you know. And, oh, what's the worst that could happen? And I'm like, give me that baby because I want to hold her, and that's my kid. Get out of here. So I didn't care. And one of those pictures you showed earlier, I don't know if you could tell, but I had been boo-hooing my little self. It was just so cool. It was just, I can't describe that feeling. And it's so weird because I didn't know that kid 2 days before or a day before. I didn't even know the birth mom. I think when I held her the first time and cried, I don't know that I ever had laid eyes on that woman before. And we'd only talked to her a couple of times on the phone. But it's so weird how your heart can just love somebody that you don't even really know. And it's just a sweet little innocent baby. And in that moment, whenever I saw her and held her, it was like, this is my kid. How cool is this? And I just ate it up. It was incredible.
Absolutely. I love that you spoke to that because so many people, even when they've already decided to adopt and they're waiting to adopt, but certainly people before they even decide to begin a program, they do come through that question of, will it be the same? Will I feel a bond to this child? Will I feel like mom and dad and not just an adoptive parent? and I love that you just said how that just fell into place. And I really think it is because you were both so open to the possibilities the whole time, too.
I think we both loved her the minute we laid eyes on her, and I cannot imagine it being any different if we were to have another kid biologically a year from now. I can't imagine it being any different.
So now it's been, she's 5 months old?
Today, 5 months.
I wanted to bring up that photo here. Let's see. You sent in so many photos, and
Sorry.
oh, no, don't apologize. I feel bad because I'm not able to flip through them all because you have such great stories and memories from these. Let's see here.
Well, while you're looking through, I was going to tell them about these pictures that you see of us in the red and black. We contacted a photographer out in California through a website. Libby, what is that website called? Do you remember?
Red Thread?
Red Thread.
Yeah,
Red
Thread
Thread Photography? Something.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
And they have photographers that are all over the United States, and they specialize in adoption. So I had spoken to the photographer, the day we found out about Ava being matched with us, and we, thought it would be 4 more weeks. We'd have plenty of time to prepare and be able to get to the hospital in time and have those meeting pictures the first time we met her and all of those, but it didn't happen that way, which was out of our control. Again, another thing that wasn't in our plan. But we met up with the photographer a few days later after we were released from the hospital, and were able to get some newborn pictures as a family of 3. So I very much encourage you to do that if that's possible.
Especially if you have the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey,
I found the website. It's redthreadsessions.com. That's www.redthreadsessions.com. Anyway, sorry, back to your conversation.
So
you
mentioned earlier
she's
how
so cute.
Isn't she cute? She just is.
That was today.
Well, I'll never forget. Yeah, that was today. You said, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh. And I mean the hair. she's growing into her hair, but that girl had a head of hair. Just amazing.
Look at those feet.
I know.
I just have a thing for those feet.
There's a great question here I wanted to maybe see about your input before we wrap up tonight that said, so how do you really plan when there's so much unknown that could happen? How did you plan? And I think it ties in well with another question, which was, didn't you worry about all this last-minute traveling and spending time out there, and things were still kind of up in the air, that she would change her mind, and then you put all this money into traveling and this heart into seeing this baby? How did you keep moving forward? Because I think whether it's a last-minute adoption or you've had time in a match, it's still easy to have that fear hold some people back from truly just embracing what's happening and being open to it. But also with the whole last-minute factor, and there's so many unknowns playing into the situation, it can heighten that anxiety too.
I think I'll be honest. Like Ryan was saying with me, I was more guarded the whole time we were out there, not just at the hospital. I feel like really until we just got home and got in our routine, I was very guarded. What if something happens? Just because I'm a worrywart, and that's what I do. So that was probably me. Now,
it's very hard to put yourself out there and take a chance and to take that risk. And that's something that I struggle with in my daily life is, I like my comfort zone. I don't want to get out there and, take big risks and potentially fall on my face or get hurt. And this is a very expensive endeavor, but we just had, I can speak for myself, and I think I'm speaking for Laura too, but I just had this perfect peace throughout the entire process. I never once now, back up a little bit. Whenever I had, before we had got matched, in the pre-match world, I had some reservations. I wasn't sure about it. I didn't know if it was going to work out. And but after we got matched and after the whole thing started to go forward, I just had complete, perfect peace about it. I don't think I ever once questioned what's going to happen now. And maybe I'm just too optimistic. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know. But I never felt like that anything would go wrong. And as far as preparing, we did everything we could before we got paid up with Lifetime. We had our nursery ready. We started to accumulate baby stuff.
And I think that too kind of distracts you from the waiting time when you start really getting the nursery together. And we also, as soon as we were very open to our employers about the adoption process, and that was something that I can encourage you to do because we were very blessed. I was actually, as soon as we got a call about a baby, I was actually leaving my job to be a stay-at-home mom. And then my husband, when we found out about the baby, his boss basically just gave him 4 weeks off. Didn't have to use vacation or anything, which was really amazing. So I would very much encourage you to just be open and tell them that there may be a chance that I'm gone 2 weeks. It might be 4 weeks,
And I'll say this, and time again, we had things come up that were mind-boggling. And I'll say that adoption is, you're doing God's work. No matter what anybody says, adoption is very close to God's heart, and he wants to enable people to adopt, and he wants to facilitate adoptions. He wants to connect parents and babies. That's what he's in the business of doing. And so I'm just not convinced that you can start walking down this road. Maybe something would happen, but I'm convinced that if you start walking down this road, number one, you'll be blessed. Number two, you won't have any issues. Again, maybe that's just me, but I really don't think you can do wrong. And I think he just opens up doors. It's like with my work, I'm in sales. I'm an engineer, and we left. I called the office when we were in the airport on the way, and I said, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks, and I'll see you when I get back. 2 weeks came. I called, hey, we're still out here. Okay, well, just let us know when you get back. And after 4 weeks, I called and I said, hey, man, we're still out here. What do you want me to do? He's like, well, I'm not worried about it. You just do what you need to do. And this was totally unexpected. So it's just one of those God things. He just enabled, he did something and made it work. So I think you'll be surprised if you just take that step of faith. That's what this whole exercise is. It's a step of faith. You just take that first step and let God surprise you, because he will. It's incredible.
And actually, this picture that's showing up right now is another God thing. Once we returned home with Ava, about probably not even a month later, we got a call. We had applied for a grant months and months before Ava even came, and we got home and found out that we had been approved for it, and that's us accepting the grant.
Which paid for about 10% of our fee.
Oh, my goodness. I love that because it just keeps pouring in. And Laura, you had told me even while you were staying away from home so long that people were just mailing checks to your hotel or asking your parents back home, how can we put money in their account to help?
Yeah.
I mean, what a humbled feeling of blessing you must have just carried the whole time, looking at this girl and thinking, little girl, if you only knew how many people were praying for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell her every day, you are so loved, more than you'll know. Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you guys could speak to from your experience that you would do differently, or that you tell other people, like, it would have been easier if we'd done it this way, or if we'd known this? I mean, is there anything left that you want to make sure our audience hears tonight?
This just came to mind about after the adoption process happens and you're dealing with all the legal sides of it with the lawyers. For us, because we were in 2 different states, we had the option to either do everything legally in California or split it, have stuff in Louisiana and California. So for us, it worked best to do one state because they were able to handle everything. Everything was covered, and everything was taken care of but one. So that's just something.
Not only was that substantially cheaper, it worked out better.
Well, and that's something too. When we're working with families through a match, whether you have a few weeks or months to prepare for that baby's birth, or if it happens suddenly, we are trying to get answers for you so that you can make those decisions, because sometimes it does work out where you're adopting from a state that you can do that state's laws, or sometimes you have to do a combination of your home state, or sometimes it only wants to honor where you live. So we do try and get those answers, and because we work with families and with birth moms nationwide, our coordinators that work on the matches probably retain way more in their minds than we could even all imagine. And Kim could probably attest to this too, because we're constantly calling them and saying, now what about this combination of states? Or what if
what
this
do you
happens?
say about this? Or what would you do? What's your advice? They're like encyclopedias.
Yes, and so when we get a birth mother, like, you know, oh, this woman's in California, she chose a family from Louisiana, this is how it's played out before. Or sometimes we might even, while you're on the plane, we might even be looking into some research or talking with an attorney on one side just to find out, you know, what's the best direction that we could tell them once they're back on land and they can turn their phones on, you know. So really feeling like you don't have to have all the answers, but we're going to walk through that, but that there are some unknowns that will come up, and we'll still be there through that too, because we don't just say, here's an opportunity, good luck, let us know how it goes. We want to be really involved.
I'll speak to that. You know, we had looked at a couple of other adoption agencies before we settled with Lifetime, and I can just say after going through this whole process, and you guys didn't ask for a sales pitch, but I'm going to give you one. Lifetime was incredible. From the beginning to the match to recommending the attorney, which our attorney that you guys recommended was unbelievable. They handled, I mean, I had the girl's cell phone number. I would just call and ask her at 6 o'clock in the evening if I had a goofy question about something. I would just call and ask her, and they were awesome. I really can't stress that enough. What a smooth process this was. I know it was a long process, and it feels like there were some bumps in the road, but overall, all things considered, it really could not have been easier from where I sit. You know, it was awesome. So Lifetime's great.
Thank you for saying that. We're getting all kinds of photos about how cute your baby girl is, which I don't think is any surprise to you. And just so many people saying, you're right, it's so much more of a leap than a step. And the minute you hold you're in, you know, so just you're really affirming a lot of the hopes and the enthusiasm that our audience has, but you're also encouraging them to just keep going too. And it's been really great to talk with you guys tonight.
Can I say one more thing before we go?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say one more. You know, I'm looking at this picture of my daughter, and it just brings back all of the questions that reservations, all of the hurdles, all of the junk that we had to do to get to where we are today. But y'all, when I hold that little girl, and she's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in the whole world, and I get up in the morning and she grins at me and laughs and kicks her feet, and I go, what did I do to deserve this? I really, it's far and away the best thing I've ever done. And she's my trophy. She really is. She is a blessing. So I just encourage you to do it. It's the best thing we've ever done.
And hang in there. If you're waiting right now and you've been waiting a while or not, just hang in there. Your time's coming.
Absolutely. Well, and we didn't really get to speak to this very much, but I do like to add, because a special part of your story is that while you were wanting to become mom and dad, and you're trying to add a child to your life, Laura was working with women like Lifetime gets calls from. She was working in a center that talks to pregnant women about, the plans they can make for the baby that they weren't planning on. She's helping women in need who were facing unplanned pregnancy, and all the while thinking, when is it my turn? And to me, that's such a powerful testimony to be able to serve others while you're waiting for what seems like a struggle to them would be a huge blessing to you. It's such a blessing on your own behalf to walk forward and just continue serving others while you wait for your story to unfold. And so if any of you are on the call, because I know sometimes it's hard to hear, even if you haven't started with Lifetime yet, you may have your own long journey that's just even led you up to researching, what can I do more? What can I do next to reach that baby? And sometimes you hear it happened in a matter of weeks, but for this family, it wasn't just a matter of weeks. It was years leading up to this child. And for those of you still waiting to be chosen, and you've done everything you can, all of our hearts go out to you, because we want these stories to encourage you, because I know, and we talk about this all the time, but if it happens for them, it's going to happen for you. And that's truly what we see in each adoption story that happens, is they're all different, and your story is going to be unique too, and you're going to have this beautiful daughter or son, and that moment like Ryan just described, where you get up in the morning and you think, is this true? This happened to us. This is our life now. This is our family. So I just appreciate both of you, Ryan and Laura, for coming on to encourage us all, and to just also help us kind of get some insights into how to get there and how to enjoy it along the way too. So
absolutely,
really
such great little stories within your story. You guys are awesome at sharing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for allowing us to share.
Yeah, it's been fun. I tell people I'll talk to anybody, and just give me a chance to talk, and I'll tell you whatever. So we appreciate that.
Great.
Thank you for the platform. Thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Well, we're grateful, and if any of you have questions or feedback from tonight's webinar or about tonight's webinar, please feel free to reach out to us. You can tell your coordinator, or you can email me, Libby@lifetimeadoption.com, and if it's something that I don't know the answer to, then I'll make sure that it gets to someone who can help you. But we want to continue offering webinars like this. So I always welcome your suggestions and feedback for topics or ideas that would help you better prepare or better understand the process, or just feel productive and moving towards your goal. So I'm grateful to all of you making time to attend tonight, and for Kim, she was typing with people in the background, getting answers related to their goals too, so that was great to see. All of the participation tonight was amazing.
Yes, it was great
Kim,
to see all of you here. No, I mean, the only other thing is if a family has not filled out their application, they can do that. If you're able to do that this evening, then tomorrow morning our applications coordinator can receive that and start processing. And just so you know, if you are new to Lifetime and aren't sure how the application process works, we send your application to the review committee, and they let us know if we have more questions and so forth. Normally we have some sort of feedback within 1 to 5 business days, so it's not like a big, long, drawn-out process. We We receive hundreds of applications on a monthly basis, so we try to just stay on top of things, and you are always welcome to call in and say, hey, I just filled out my application. Can you let me know the status? I hadn't heard anything yet, and that is totally fine with us. We have an open door policy here at Lifetime. The application is available at lifetimeadoption.com/apply.
Great. Well, I'm going to wrap up tonight, and if any of you have questions, I'm going to stay on a little bit longer quietly and just type a few answers just so that you can have some direction before we hang up. But otherwise, we'll meet with all of you again soon, and we hope you have a great night.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.